I would like to welcome Lisa Tan, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Reverie. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Joe. It's nice to be here.
So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the company, Reverie, and then also after that, tell us about your journey. I know you've been there almost 10 years now. So if you could tell us about the company and then tell us about your journey to your current role.
Sounds good. So Reverie is a sleep technology company on a mission to help people live better lives through the power of sleep. So our primary products are adjustable bases and customizable mattresses, all for the end consumer. We've been in business for close to 17, 18 years now. So I joined Reverie about in 2012. Prior to that, in my early career, I was in publishing and editorial and then PR. And then I spent my formative professional years as a management and strategy consultant. So that was an amazing way to learn how to be a professional, to learn how to do quick analysis and, to really understand the big picture. In 2012, I knew that I wanted to do something more client side. And so that's when I moved to Reverie. I originally signed up for a 3-month project. Full disclosure, my husband is actually the co-founder and CEO of Reverie.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So I had said, I would help him start a D2C division and figure out the marketing plan. 3 months to 6 months max. We'll see how it goes. But I'm still here today, so I guess it's going pretty well.
Wow. Okay. So couple of questions. Just in terms of sleep technology, what that means in practice is special bed frames, mattresses, and other accessories that aid in the sleep process?
Correct. So it's, your mattress is something you use every day. Our concept is that it needs to be customized for the individual. So a lot of people share a mattress, and very rarely do they have the same sleep needs. You probably don't wear the same shoes or, coat size as your partner. And it's really important that you consider the needs of everybody sleeping on the bed. So often a mattress purchase is a compromise. So our beds are customizable so that you have your firmness on your side of the bed. And as your body changes over time, and over the course of 10 years, you may gain weight, you may lose weight, you may increase your muscle mass, you may get pregnant, you may have surgery. All of these things impact the sleeping surface that you need for optimal sleep. So our mattress is reconfigurable over time. So you can actually unzip the cover and reconfigure our dream cell technology inside to create a firmer or softer feel.
Cool. So you mentioned that you were brought on to help with a direct consumer channel. I assume that means there's also other channels as well.
Yes. So our company started off as a manufacturer. We were doing private label manufacturing for other big mattress brands. So that is how we cut our teeth, and it was all with the adjustable base. So an adjustable base, if you're not familiar with the technology, is a foundation that's controlled with a remote. The head goes up, the foot goes up, and then we can add on a lot of other cool features. So our beds have a tilt feature. We have this proprietary massage technology. We can even use voice activation to have your bed lift or lower. Or you can use an app to program it to do something at a certain time every night. You have your bedtime routine that will lift you up into zero gravity, massage you, and then after 30 minutes, when you've fallen asleep in that amazingly comfortable position, it'll put you flat again.
I do have to say you look better rested than most of our guests in the CMO Spotlight, Lisa. So it must be working for you.
Oh. Well, I do take my sleep very seriously, Joe.
And so my other question is just, there's often a question when you work with a spouse, what's it like and how's it, how do you separate work life from home life?
It is, it's a joy and a challenge, I will say. I think on one hand, we have the flexibility to make decisions about our family and about our life and our business because we're coordinated as far as our schedules go and as far as our objectives. I think the challenge is obviously trying to separate the work from the personal. Right. In a COVID environment, this became even more difficult when we were constantly at home. But I think we've done a fairly good job of separating. And in fact, sometimes it's even the alternative where we don't actually schedule work time to talk about work. And so putting that routine where we have a professional update in the office during work hours is really important to maintain that separation between work and life.
Great. So I'm curious, what advice you wish you got when you were a little younger in your career, or what advice would you give somebody that's younger in their career, either starting out or mid-career?
Yeah. This is advice I would have liked to have, and I certainly give now. And that is that you should not try to be a people pleaser. It's very easy early on in your career to want to say yes, to want to please your superiors and to want to show up as perfect. But the reality is acknowledging when you don't understand something or you don't know something or you've truly messed up is going to benefit you much faster and for the long term versus trying to cover up or trying to pretend that you're perfect. Nobody is perfect, and we all learn and grow by making mistakes and acknowledging them.
I love that. I heard somebody say, you don't want to strive for perfection, you want to strive for improvement.
That's great.
So I believe that everybody has a superpower. And so I'm curious what your superpower is.
This is a challenging question. I think my superpower is probably, I have a keen sense of observation. So I'm not the most forward person. I tend to be on the more quiet, introverted side, but I am very aware of surroundings. So I observe the nuance. I observe body language. I observe the little details that are sometimes missed when you're scanning a room. And I use those details to connect. So there are so many things going on in a workplace and in a team. And I think my superpower is the ability to see the whole picture, to see the details, and to be able to connect them all into the macro.
And my guess is that sense of perception, perceptiveness leads to one of the more important traits of a good marketer, in my opinion, which is empathy, right? And being able to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer who's making a purchase decision.
Absolutely. It is challenging sometimes to put ourselves in the shoes of the consumer, especially when they're not necessarily relatable to your personal experience.
Right.
And worked very hard over the years to make sure that the team understands that. Our team is heavily millennial. And millennials are certainly experiencing new stages of life at this point. But our product is often servicing a much older customer. And so even considerations like font size or terminology really, really matter when we're trying to support the customer. And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and the empathy is absolutely critical.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you think font size, color contrast, lots of things like that are important to, they work for younger audiences too, but certainly you want to make sure that you resonate with the older audiences that might be good customers for your product.
Absolutely.
So, as we talk today, we're wrapping up, hopefully, this global pandemic, and many Americans are getting vaccinated, and then vaccines are happening around the world. But so I know COVID and the pandemic has changed the way you work, and I think many of us have had to learn to work from home or from somewhere else. But other than the pandemic, what's the biggest challenge that you face as a marketer?
Pandemic aside, I think the biggest challenge that my team and I face as a marketer is our product is a premium product. So when we're talking about the sleep system, it's the adjustable base plus the mattress, approaches $10,000. And also it's a bed. So it's a touch and feel product. And it requires a fair amount of time to go through the product, whether you're doing an in-person demonstration or whether you're doing a consultation over the phone. So our superpower when it comes to the sales process is having a consultation, not only about the product, but also about your sleep and your sleep habits. And our challenge is always helping customers to come in and be willing to have that conversation that ties the product to their sleep habits and their sleep performance. And so many people do not associate the quality of their lives with the quality of their sleep, and the quality of their sleep with their habits, their environment, and the tools that they use for sleep. And so, it's a very complex USP to try to bring in the right people to have that conversation. So our challenge is always, how do we draw in people to understand that we're not here to sell a bed, we're here to sell sleep.
And given that there's been some hesitation to go into an environment to touch and feel something that's a very tactile product in some ways, what are the ways you can digitally or with other tools be able to do the education that's necessary for the consumer to really understand why this should be a part of their life?
So it's a combination of digital and human touch. We do rely heavily on our inside sales team to have those in-depth conversations, to answer questions, of the customer, and to develop that whole profile of sleep. We also are constantly working on our digital assets to engage the consumer who may be searching for, a solution to a snoring partner, or searching for a solution to chronic back pain. And there are many different pathways that we engage the customer with, and they're all pretty heavily content related. So our strategy has always relied heavily on content to help people and inform them on the whole picture of sleep and habits and equipment.
Great. So you mentioned that your team is largely composed of millennials. So I'm wondering, how do you coach and mentor and help them grow, as they progress in their career?
Well, I would say that one benefit of this year being remote is actually, I think I've been more intentional about carving out that one-on-one time. So, and using it not for updates on projects, but really to say, how are you doing? What is on your horizon for your career, for what you want, for where you see opportunities to grow. And that's been really good, because I think it's allowed us some form of continuity and also just relationship building, that in an environment where you're always together, you sometimes take for granted that you spend all this time with people, so you automatically know them and understand them. But taking the time to actually carve out, let's spend some time developing our relationship, and let's talk about you, has been really beneficial.
I actually, for one of my members of my team, we separated out a meeting into two different kinds of meetings. One meeting is the status update with their work. And the other meeting is growth and development from a career standpoint. And those are two different meetings, and you're not allowed to give the status update during the growth and development meeting. And you're not allowed to talk about you can, but it's not really the purpose of the actual, status update. And that's been really helpful to separate those into two different meetings.
Absolutely.
With different purposes.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to shift gears a little. So setup exists to connect and empower marketers, and that often means connecting brands with marketing agencies and vice versa, marketing agencies with brands. And so I'm curious, if you work with agencies today, how do you work with marketing agencies, or even how have you worked with them in a past life, if not now?
So we have a long history with a variety of different agencies at Reverie. And we've used them for everything from, media relations to, ad placement to creative, even in the beginning when I first started, to just the brand, the brand feel. And I think one challenge that we've always faced as a as a mid-tier company is it's difficult to have the full presence from an agency, because we're generally not going to be spending enough to have their full dedication. So what's most important for us when we're looking for a partner is that they truly understand our needs and expectations, and that they can live and breathe the brand as an extension of who we are, and that they can keep up with the changes in our company and our growth. And that's always been somewhat challenging. So for a period of time, we had almost everything in-house.
Mhm.
Now, what we've started to go to is, what are we really good at? What are we going to hold in-house versus where do we have an opportunity to actually utilize the expertise of an agency that has much more exposure to the rapid pace of change? So where we've landed right now is we've brought our media relations in-house. We have, our VP of marketing is tremendously talented in that area. And for things like web development, we're completely shaking up our model right now, where we're going to rely much more heavily on the technical piece externally and keep the creative and the maintenance of the campaigns in-house.
Yeah, and that leads me to the question, are there certain disciplines that you would never, ever want to keep in-house? I mean, you mentioned web design and development, maybe one, I don't know. And then are there certain ones that you would, always want to hold close to and internal, and you would never think about outsourcing that to an agency?
So I think, for us, the communication piece on some level is something that we hold near and dear, whether we're working with an agency partner to augment or we're keeping it in-house. I think the core strategy and, hands-on approach is really important for that piece. As it relates to paid media or affiliate relationships or influencer relationships, I think that's where we found more success in having an external partner who can really leverage their networks and their experience, to amplify our story.
That's a great perspective. And sometimes we see in some cases, the opposite with the public relations piece, which is leveraging a partner that has relationships with press and media and things like that. But I love that that's a piece that's so core to your business that it feels like, it should be kept internal. That's great. So, given the relationship that in some ways there's, family involved in the business, with your husband being involved in the business, maybe there's a different way to ask this question, but I often ask, how does marketing show the value to the rest of the organization that may not be marketing people? Often within an organization, the CFO and the CEO and if there's a supply chain person and people like that just think marketing is spending a bunch of money. So how do you show the value of marketing to the rest of the organization?
And I would say it's no different in our organization, just because of our relationship. We have a pretty strict COO and CFO who need to see proof of concept.
Right.
So it's all about data. When we can show that our return on investment is worthwhile, and that we've clearly thought through the why and the outcome, that's where we're most successful. And over the past few years, we've become much more focused on what that P&L actually means, and everybody needs to own it, because if the marketing team doesn't have that understanding of the funnel and of the P&L, then they're not going to be able to perform to expectation. So aligning that data is so critical.
I love that. And it sounds very ROI focused in terms of, we're going to spend money, we need to make money. But as you know, sometimes brand and building brand doesn't result directly in a immediate sale. And particularly if you have a product that's going to require some education of the consumer over time, there's got to be an upfront investment to then get hopefully a payoff down the road. So how do you make that work when not every single dollar you spend is going to show direct ROI immediately?
Yeah, so it may not tie directly to dollars right away, but you can see the engagement, you can see the site visits, you can see the site returns and the time, so a lot of it goes back to the web analytics. On the brand side, when we're talking about wholesale, that's where things get more challenging. A large portion of our business is selling adjustable bases through retailers, and so there it does become trickier. There's a co-op element, but then there's also just a lot of time spent in investment of training and distribution of materials, either digitally or in person, through our training and sales team. And that's where the engagement and eventually the ROI shows up as well.
So it sounds like you have a different set of metrics if it's focused on, let's say, brand or education, than the set of metrics you use where you're just trying to directly spend $1 to get $1 sale, a sale.
Certainly.
That's smart. So is there a particular campaign or program that you've run that taught you a great deal, either because it was a giant success, or maybe it was a huge flop and it taught you something that you learned that has helped you, after that?
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the importance of not, trying to serve your own mindset, but really understanding the needs and the desires of the customer. One campaign that we ran several years ago, and it just happened to be the same time when I had a baby and a toddler, was a new moms campaign.
Oh, nice.
So we had done some market research to show that an adjustable base was something that new moms were very interested in. Being pregnant or having a C-section, or a natural birth, and trying to get out of bed is difficult on a flat surface. With an adjustable base, it helps with, getting out of bed, recovery, nursing, and just, cuddle time. So we devised this whole campaign around new moms. And, we did several considerations and testing. But there were a lot of hiccups along the way because new moms aren't necessarily thinking about spending for themselves. They're thinking about buying the bassinet and the stroller and all the other things that they're going to use for a brief period of time and throughout. But it doesn't. Trying to convince a new mom that she shouldn't spend money on things that she's only going to use for 6 months doesn't really work. So, I think that was a challenging campaign and a high learning campaign for me personally, because I think I was emotionally invested in that category. But then also we did have a challenge navigating what messaging was going to work the best. I would say that was one of the most difficult campaigns for us to run from a messaging standpoint, because there were a lot of factors that weren't necessarily aligning with the intent that a customer would express versus their actual behaviors. So to me, the biggest learning was just, there are some things that you have to test in a live environment. And I think we've certainly moved our general testing methodology more towards the live environment test in small increments versus building the campaign based on some focus group data and then running with it, because that difference between intent or expression versus behavior is so significant sometimes.
Yeah. We work with one of the agencies we work with does, instead of having one big campaign message, they come up with, call it 100 different micro messages to micro segments of the audience. And they spend media dollars to push them all in, live campaigns. And then they see which ones really resonate and which ones don't. And then they can heavy up on the ones that resonate the most. And then sometimes a core campaign idea bubbles up from one of the micro messages, which I love that approach. It's a little different than the way many agencies approach those kinds of campaign ideas. And usually there's a thematic, larger theme. Like in this case for you, clearly the larger theme was, we have something special for new moms that will help you navigate the, pre-birth, pregnancy, post-birth recovery, and then beyond. I mean, and your product is good for not just the pregnant mom, the new mom, but even way beyond that. And so I guess that maybe that the message had to evolve, that this is not just for a small snapshot or window in time for you, new mom. This is a long-term investment.
Right.
But this is one time when you could clearly empathize very closely with the target audience, even if you can't always.
Right. Well, and it's great to be able to empathize, but it's also dangerous to get too much into your own experience.
Right. Because you think you're like every other potential new mom, and maybe that's not the case.
And you never are.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of wrap things up with some fun questions that have nothing to do with what we've talked about already. So the first one is there a movie or a band or a book or a quote that really inspires you?
So I am a sleep geek outside of work. I think I've always been interested in sleep and the brain and the biology behind it. So I do think a lot about sleep, both at work and outside of work. But a quote. I'll paraphrase this quote from John Steinbeck, which is, a lot of times a problem that you can't solve at night can be solved in the morning after the committee of sleep has worked on it. And I think that the concept of the committee of sleep is so great because we spend so much time wearing ourselves down mentally, physically, and emotionally. And the best way to recover is sleep. And we don't give ourselves, it's so tempting to stay up all night to eke out that extra minute of Netflix or, really try to tackle your to-do list before you sleep. When the truth is, if we allow ourselves that restorative sleep, we're going to function so much better and more efficiently in the morning. So that's definitely one.
Great. I love it. So I realized I didn't ask you a question that I kind of wanted to ask, but I can sort of pair it with this one, which is, aside from your young kids and your family, what gives you inspiration or joy outside of work?
So yeah, definitely the kids and young family. I spend a lot of time thinking about them and the magic of growing up and learning and the doors that are opened every time you learn something new, like reading, of course. So that's a big one. But I also I'm a very active person. So I enjoy the outdoors. I like to walk and hike and ski. Now that it's spring and summer, we're going to start playing tennis and golf. Just anything active and outside brings me the ultimate joy.
Excellent. So what's a brand that you've never worked on that really you admire, and what about that brand do you admire?
So a couple come to mind, and they're all B Corps.
Oh yeah.
Patagonia and Bombas are two that I love because they lead with their mission and they lead with good. So, whether it's Patagonia with their amazing photography of people achieving, awesome things in nature, to the profits that they donate to supporting the environment, or Bombas, which is just such a clear and simple story. They took a huge need that was overlooked and so unsexy. And I mean, I think they've donated close to 50, I don't even know the number, but like tens of millions of socks to, homeless people. It's inspiring.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I have two more questions. The first is there a fictional story or realm that you would like to live in?
Yes. I've been reading the Magic Treehouse series with my older kid. And in that book, there's a treehouse in the woods. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So the sister and brother will go into the woods to play, and sometimes the treehouse will be there. They'll climb up, and there will be a book that gives them clues as to where they're going to go. The treehouse spins, and they end up in another place in another time. And then they have to solve some sort of problem, which always works out well. So I love the idea of going back in time to a different place and being able to fit in and kind of live the life there, knowing that I'm going to be successful and make it back home.
Unlike the movie Back to the Future, where he wasn't sure it was going to be successful.
Right.
Okay. So my last question for you is there something that I should have asked as part of this conversation that you would have liked for me to have asked?
I think one thing I'm really proud of what are you really proud of?
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that.
So
add all future conversations now. I love it.
So can I answer it?
Yes, please. Please.
So one thing I'm really proud of is an exercise that we went through as an organization a couple of years ago to develop, we did the mission, vision, values refresh, but there is still something missing in that framework. And what we've defined it as is the pathways. And so, our mission is to help people live better lives through the power of sleep. Our vision is to help 20 million people sleep better with Reverie by 2027. And, our core values, are what we look for when we hire and develop people, and they're humble confidence, a passion for innovation, going above and beyond, and being default positive. But there's a big separation between that foundation of mission and values and the vision. And it wasn't playing out in everyday life at work. So we came up with the pathways, which are really intended to live, allow you to live. And they are understanding the needs and expectations of the customer, understanding the needs and expectations of the organization, and being agile, responsive, and efficient in meeting those needs and expectations. And those pathways are very easy to understand. They're easy to provide feedback with. And they've kind of spurred the initiative that I've been focused on the past 2 years, which is around the customer experience. So when we think about the importance of marketing as, really in many ways owning the initial onset of the customer experience to, actually selling, servicing, and continuing a relationship with the customer, these pathways have helped us create more internal alignment around around the customer than we've ever had before. And so I'm really proud of that work. It's definitely ongoing. We still have a long way to go before we master the customer experience. But I'm very proud of the work that we've done and in coming up with those pathways and in driving all of our activities towards meeting them.
I love that. And it sounds like you involved the team in coming up with those. This wasn't done in a vacuum. Is that true?
Absolutely. It required a lot of teamwork and collaboration and iteration that would not have happened in a small room of executives.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, Lisa Tan is the Chief Marketing Officer for Reverie, a sleep technology company. Thank you so much for this time and this conversation, Lisa.
Thank you, Joe.